Hey everyone, and today I'll be going over what it's actually like using Surfshark inside mainland China, especially how it compares to something like ExpressVPN and which provider holds up better depending on which Chinese mobile network you're on. Because as you may already know, internet conditions inside China can be unpredictable. So even if a VPN is working one day, that doesn't always mean it'll work the next. But based on the most recent testing I've done, I'll walk you through what still works, what doesn't, and the specific setup steps I'd recommend if you're planning to use a VPN in China yourself. Now, just a quick heads up, China has three main mobile networks: China Telecom, China Mobile, and China Unicom. And depending on which one you're using, your VPN performance can vary quite a bit. For example, some providers might make it easier to connect or maintain a stable VPN connection, while others can be more restrictive or inconsistent. And what worked well last month might not work as well today, since the Great Firewall itself gets updated regularly. So it's not just about which VPN you choose, it's also about which mobile provider you're on. And I'll break down those differences a bit more with the actual test results. So starting with ExpressVPN, it worked the best on China Telecom, and in most cases, I could even access their website directly without needing a workaround. On China Mobile, it was still functional, but I did have to use a free VPN first just to load their website. And then on China Unicom, it unfortunately didn't work at all during testing. As far as stability goes, ExpressVPN isn't quite as reliable in China as it used to be. It still works, but depending on the server and time of day, you might experience more disconnections than expected. Speeds are generally solid when it's working, but again, not all servers are equally stable or even usable. Now, switching over to Surfshark, the experience was a little different. It actually performed better on China Mobile than on China Telecom, which was a bit surprising, and overall, it was more stable and consistent, with a much higher success rate when connecting. Foreign sites like YouTube and Twitter loaded just fine, but I did notice that local Chinese sites like Baidu were a bit slower than usual when Surfshark was running. So it's a bit of a trade-off where you get good performance on international content, but with some slowdown on domestic traffic. The Surfshark mobile app did crash on me a few times, and the desktop version took longer to connect and felt less intuitive. But once it's up and running, it's reliable. Just keep in mind, the monthly price is higher unless you commit to one of the longer term plans. Now, if you're already in China and trying to install one of these VPNs, you might run into a bit of a snag. Their websites can sometimes be blocked, which means you'll need to use a temporary workaround just to get the app. In that case, I'd recommend trying Surfshark's free version first. It's a lot more stable than most free VPNs and should let you access the main sites for either ExpressVPN or Surfshark itself. Proton VPN is another option, but in my experience, it's not quite as consistent. Also, if you're using an iPhone or iPad, just keep in mind that VPN apps won't show up in the Chinese App Store. So it's a good idea to set up a foreign Apple ID, like a US account, before you travel. That way, you can download all the apps you need ahead of time. And once you're inside China, both ExpressVPN and Surfshark offer alternate domains that their apps automatically detect. So even if the main site is blocked, you can still connect through those. So here's where it all comes together. If you're planning to use Surfshark, it tends to perform better on China Mobile, but if you're leaning toward ExpressVPN, China Telecom is usually the safer bet. Now, that can change over time, and that's why I always recommend checking in with your VPN's live chat support before choosing a mobile provider. They'll often be able to tell you which one's currently working the best. And if you're already using one and your connection's struggling, the support team may suggest switching to a different provider altogether, or at least adjusting your configuration settings. Now, if you're someone who's a bit more tech savvy, there's another option that can be even more stable and a lot cheaper, and that's using what's called an airport. These aren't VPNs, but rather proxy services that use protocols like V2Ray, ShadowSox, or Trojan. You import them into third-party apps like Clash or Shadow Rocket, and they let you bypass the firewall in much the same way a VPN does, just with a bit more setup involved. The main benefit here is performance and price. These can be way more stable and cost significantly less than a traditional VPN, but the trade-off is that they're not as beginner-friendly, and they're not supported by affiliate programs, so you won't find many mainstream reviews or setup guides. Now, just to clarify, whether you're using Surfshark or ExpressVPN, you'll still be able to access the main services most people want: Netflix, Twitter, WhatsApp, Skype, Facebook, and all the others that are typically restricted in China. So from a functionality standpoint, both still work well. So overall, ExpressVPN is still the most reliable option in terms of performance, especially if you're using China Telecom. But with the recent stability issues and more frequent disconnections, it may not be the best fit for everyone anymore. Surfshark, on the other hand, offers a more affordable long-term plan, and it's been more stable on China Mobile. And despite a few app issues here and there, it's still one of the better picks works for most users, especially if you want something that's easy to set up and just works. And if you'd like to check out either of these VPNs, I'll include links in the description that may still work even if you're already in China. They often include discounts as well, so feel free to take advantage of those if you're interested. So hopefully you found this guide helpful. If so, please consider giving it a thumbs up, as I always appreciate that. And if you have any questions about setup, performance, or anything else, feel free to leave those in the comments below, as I love getting to help out whenever I can. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video.